Welcome to the deep dive. Have you ever sat in a meeting or maybe way back in a classroom, completely lost but hesitant to speak up? Today, we're diving deep into that very human experience, why we sometimes avoid asking for help, even when we know we really need it.
It's a puzzle we've all likely encountered, haven't we? That internal struggle between wanting to understand and, well, the reluctance to admit we don't. For this deep dive, we've got some fascinating academic research that really digs into the motivations behind this and, the classroom factors that come into play.
Exactly. And this isn't just theoretical stuff. Whether you're a student navigating tricky concepts, preparing for a project where you might need clarification, or maybe just someone curious about how we learn and overcome challenges, understanding this can offer some really valuable insights. Our mission today is basically to unpack why this happens and what it reveals about effective learning for all of us.
So let's get clear on what we're exploring. Avoidance of help seeking, as the research calls it, is the deliberate choice a student makes not to ask for assistance when they know they're struggling. Picture this. You're facing a problem, it's got you stumped, but instead of raising your hand, you just skip it. Or maybe take a wild guess. That's the kind of behavior we're talking about.
Right. It's that moment when you realize, okay, I'm not quite grasping this, and then deciding, nope, stay quiet or find some other way around it. The research even talks about this initial stage called perplexity, the dawning awareness that your understanding isn't complete.
Precisely. And this feeling of perplexity, it can arise from different things. Maybe the teacher gives feedback, highlighting a mistake, or perhaps you realize your own answer just doesn't line up with, say, a reliable source. It's that internal or external signal that something isn't quite right.
And it's at that crucial point, recognizing the need, that the fork in the road appears. Do you ask for help or do you avoid it? It's quite revealing, actually. I think one researcher, Dylan, pointed out that a significant number of questions that pop into our heads never actually get voiced. Think about that for a moment. In your own life, how many times have you been unsure but just stayed silent?
Yeah. And what's really intriguing is unpicking the why behind that silence. The research points to a mix of, well, practical and psychosocial reasons. Practical concerns could be straightforward things like, classroom rules that restrict when you can ask questions, or maybe past experiences where asking for help just didn't lead to a useful response. Perhaps the helper seemed unwilling, or the explanation wasn't clear, or it simply took too long.
Those practical barriers make total sense, don't they? If you anticipate maybe getting in trouble for asking, or if past attempts have been kind of fruitless, you'd understandably be less likely to try again. But the research also delves into the more psychological side, our inherent desire for independence, and what they term a threat to competence. Okay, let's really dig into this idea of competence concerns, because it seems to be a core driver here.
Absolutely. At the heart of these competence concerns is the fear that needing help signals, well, a lack of ability. Students worry that if they put their hand up, ask a question, their teachers and even their classmates will form negative judgments about them. The research specifically highlights that many students are afraid of being seen as dumb if they seek assistance. That fear, it can be incredibly powerful.
Wow, that's a really profound and, when you think about it, quite a vulnerable feeling. So this fear of appearing less capable becomes a major factor in the decision to avoid seeking help, even when it would genuinely benefit their understanding. It's like an internal tug of war between the desire to learn and the desire to project an image of competence. Have you ever felt that yourself?
Oh, definitely. And the research goes deeper, exploring how our individual characteristics can amplify or maybe lessen these competence concerns and consequently influence whether we avoid seeking help. One key area is how we perceive our own cognitive competence.
So our own assessment of our academic abilities, like how smart we think we are.
Precisely. The research consistently indicates that students who either are struggling academically or who believe they aren't very strong academically, well, they're much more inclined to avoid asking for help. For you, the listener who might have ever felt insecure about your knowledge in a certain area, this probably resonates. The fear is that needing help will just confirm those negative self-perceptions and, worse, make them visible to others, reinforcing that worry of seeming incapable.
That resonates deeply, yeah. If you're already feeling like you're on shaky ground, the thought of publicly admitting you need help can feel like, well, admitting defeat or something. What about the other side of the coin? People who are confident in their abilities.
Yeah, for those who are high achieving or have a strong sense of their own cognitive competence, the dynamic shifts. They are less likely to interpret needing help as a reflection of some fundamental lack of intelligence. They might see it more as, a temporary snag or a specific point of confusion that needs clarification without it impacting their overall view of their abilities. So consequently, they tend to be more willing to seek help when they encounter difficulties.
Interesting. So it's not just about your actual skill level, but also about the story you tell yourself about your own abilities. Okay. Now, the research also touches on perceptions of social competence. How does our comfort level in social situations play into this reluctance?
This is a really critical and I think often underestimated aspect. Our research shows that individuals who feel socially competent, meaning they're comfortable and skilled in interacting with others, they're less threatened by the act of seeking help. And they're more likely to do it. And here's a key point for you. This holds true regardless of how they perceive their academic abilities.
Wait, really? So even someone who's really confident in their understanding of a topic might still hesitate to ask a question if they're worried about how their peers or the instructor will react socially.
Exactly. It highlights that seeking help isn't purely an academic transaction, it's also very much a social interaction. If you feel confident navigating social situations, you're likely more confident in your ability to ask for help without negative social consequences. Like a negative reaction or judgment from the person you're asking.
That's a powerful point. It really underscores the social dimension of learning, doesn't it? It's not just about you and the material. It's about navigating the environment and your relationships within it. Now, the research also delves into something called achievement goal orientations. This sounds like another crucial piece of understanding why some of us stay silent. Can you break that down for us?
Absolutely. Achievement goal orientations essentially describe the underlying reasons why individuals engage in learning. The research primarily focuses on two main types: mastery goals and performance goals.
Okay, so what's the core difference between those two? Mastery versus performance.
Right. Individuals with mastery goals are primarily driven by the desire to learn and improve their understanding. They see effort as a positive thing, a necessary step on the path to mastering a skill or concept. On the other hand, those with performance goals are more focused on how their performance compares to others. They want to outperform their peers, gain recognition for being the best, and crucially, avoid appearing less capable. Their primary concern is demonstrating their ability.
Okay, so how do these different motivations relate to whether someone is likely to ask for help? It seems pretty clear for mastery goals.
Unsurprisingly, mastery goals tend to lessen competence concerns and, as a result, reduce the tendency to avoid seeking help. If your main aim is to understand and improve, asking a question is simply a tool to achieve that goal. It's a natural part of the learning process, right? Effort is valued, and needing help is seen as just a step towards greater understanding. That's a valuable perspective for anyone trying to learn something new.
That makes perfect sense from a learning perspective. But I can definitely see how performance goals might lead to a completely different approach to asking for help.
Exactly. When individuals are driven by performance goals, they become much more concerned about how others will perceive them. Asking for help can be interpreted as admitting they're not already at the top, which directly clashes with their goal of appearing highly capable. This intensifies their competence concerns and, consequently, their likelihood of avoiding seeking help. That drive to look smart can ironically make it harder to become smarter. A key insight for anyone in a competitive learning or professional environment, wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. It's almost counterintuitive, isn't it? The very individuals who are focused on excelling might actually be hindering their own learning by being afraid to appear less than perfect. Now, you also mentioned social goal orientations. How do our social aims in a learning environment play a role in this?
Yeah, just as we have academic goals guiding our learning, we also have social goals that influence our behavior within a group, like a classroom. The research highlights two key social goal orientations: social intimacy goals and social status goals.
Okay, so social intimacy, wanting to connect with others, form close relationships, versus social status, wanting to gain respect, a higher standing within the group.
That's a pretty concise way to put it, yeah. Social intimacy goals revolve around the desire for acceptance and close connections with peers. Social status goals, on the other hand, are more about seeking prestige and visibility within the broader peer group.
And how do these social motivations link to help-seeking behavior? I imagine status goals might be similar to performance goals.
You got it. Social status goals tend to have a similar effect to performance goals. If someone is highly invested in maintaining a certain social image or reputation, asking for help can feel like a risk to that image. It's a public act that could potentially lead to negative judgments from their peers, thus increasing their likelihood of avoiding help. They might worry about appearing less cool or less popular if they admit they don't understand something for you to consider if you've ever felt that social pressure.
Oh, yeah, I think many of us can relate to that feeling at some point.
Precisely. But social intimacy goals tend to have the opposite effect. If your primary social goal is to build connections and foster positive relationships, then seeking help can actually be seen as an opportunity for positive interaction. It's a chance to connect with someone, get their perspective, maybe even strengthen the relationship. So therefore, social intimacy goals are negatively related to help avoidance. Think of a student who easily makes friends. They're likely more comfortable saying, "Hey, could you explain that part again? I'm not quite getting it," without feeling like it reflects poorly on them.
It's fascinating how these different goal orientations, both academic and social, really shape whether someone feels comfortable enough to raise their hand. Now, the research also touches on how these goals might interact with an individual's actual achievement level. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, this is a really important nuance to consider. The research suggests that the impact of performance goals on help-seeking behavior can actually depend on someone's academic standing. Specifically, for those who are lower achieving and also strongly driven by performance goals, while the competence concerns and the avoidance of help become even more pronounced. It's a sort of double whammy.
Wow. So the very individuals who might be struggling the most and are really focused on trying to appear competent compared to others are the least likely to seek the help they desperately need. That sounds like a really challenging cycle.
It is. It's a tough spot. The students who could benefit most from assistance are often the most hesitant to ask. Their performance goal orientation just amplifies their fear of appearing incapable. On the flip side, the research poses an interesting question for future exploration. Could social status play a similar moderating role for those with social status goals? For example, would someone who already enjoys high social status be less concerned about seeking help than someone who is actively striving for it? It's a potential parallel that warrants further investigation.
Definitely something to consider as we think about social dynamics and learning environments. Okay, now, shifting our focus a bit, the research also examined how the learning environment itself influences help-seeking behavior. It's not just about the individual, is it?
Absolutely not. The classroom context, or really any learning environment, plays a huge role. The research highlights three key aspects: the explicit and implicit rules and norms of the environment, the overarching achievement goal structure that's communicated, and the general social and interpersonal climate.
Okay, let's start with the rules and norms. How do these unspoken and spoken guidelines shape whether someone feels comfortable asking for help?
Well, teachers or leaders in any learning context establish rules and norms that can either encourage or discourage help seeking. Think about the opportunities provided for asking questions, the specific instructions given on how to ask, even the systems of reward and consequence. They all have an impact. Think about a situation where questions are only permitted at the very end of a long presentation, with maybe a crowd of others also waiting. That might deter you from asking, right? Even if you really need clarification.
Oh, for sure. Or an environment where speaking up during a task is frowned upon or seen as disruptive. People quickly learn what's acceptable and what's not.
Exactly. Students themselves have shared in research about the specific times they perceive it's okay to ask questions, like during a lecture versus after instructions versus only at the end. And beyond specific question-asking rules, general guidelines about task completion and interaction also matter. For instance, strict rules against collaboration during independent work might inadvertently prevent individuals from seeking help from their peers. So the rules and norms really establish the framework for what's considered appropriate behavior.
And these rules and norms, they often reflect the underlying achievement goal structure and the overall social climate, don't they? They're kind of linked.
Precisely. Which brings us to the second key aspect: the achievement goal structure of the learning environment. This is conveyed through the types of tasks assigned, how progress and success are recognized and evaluated, and just the general emphasis of the environment. A learning space with a mastery goal structure emphasizes understanding, personal growth, and the intrinsic value of learning. Mistakes are viewed as opportunities for growth, which, can be very liberating for a learner like you.
And in that kind of environment, it seems like individuals would feel much more comfortable admitting they need help, right?
That's exactly what the research indicates. In environments where a strong mastery goal structure is perceived, there's less avoidance of help seeking. The focus is on learning and improving, not on outperforming others, so needing help just doesn't carry the same negative weight.
Makes sense. What about the flip side? learning environments that emphasize performance and competition.
Yeah, in contrast, a learning environment with a performance goal structure prioritizes demonstrating ability relative to others. Competition and being seen as highly capable are emphasized. Research suggests that in these settings, individuals report higher levels of help avoidance. The pressure to appear competent discourages them from admitting they need assistance. It's like the environment itself reinforces those internal anxieties we talked about earlier.
It's almost as if the learning environment can either amplify or maybe soften an individual's own personal tendencies when it comes to seeking help.
Absolutely. And interestingly, research suggests that a mastery-oriented learning context can even lessen the tendency of those with a strong performance orientation to avoid seeking help. The supportive atmosphere can sometimes override their personal anxieties about appearing less capable. That's a hopeful sign, isn't it?
It really is. So, creating a culture that values learning and growth over just competition can benefit everyone, even those who might naturally be more focused on external validation. Okay, the third aspect of the learning environment you mentioned was the social and interpersonal climate. This feels particularly relevant given our earlier discussion about social competence and social goals.
It is indeed. Help seeking is, at its core, a social interaction. The quality of relationships and the overall social atmosphere significantly influence someone's willingness to ask for help. Familiarity and positive connections increase the likelihood of seeking help. You're just more likely to ask someone you know and trust, right? Research even shows that friendships play a significant role in who individuals choose to ask for assistance. Have you noticed that in your own interactions?
Definitely. It feels much, much easier to ask a friend or someone you have a good rapport with than, say, a stranger or someone you feel intimidated by.
Exactly. And it extends to the relationship with the instructor or leader as well. Individuals who feel liked and supported by their teacher or leader are more likely to report seeking help. A caring, supportive, and friendly environment creates a sense of psychological safety. You feel more comfortable admitting when you're struggling without fearing negative judgment.
So, a teacher or leader who is just seen as approachable and supportive can really make a huge difference in encouraging people to speak up when they're lost.
Absolutely. Research indicates that when instructors show genuine concern for the well-being of those they're teaching, it's linked to less help avoidance. And this is particularly true for individuals who might doubt their own abilities. This suggests that a positive social climate can actually break that negative cycle where those who are least confident are the most reluctant to seek help.
It really highlights the crucial role of the person leading the learning, whether it's a teacher, a manager, or whatever, in setting a tone where it's okay to not know and okay to ask. Now, the research also points towards some avenues for future exploration in this area. What are some of the questions that researchers are still trying to answer?
Well, one interesting area is the role of avoidance goal orientations. So far, much of the research has concentrated on the approach side of goals, wanting to achieve mastery or demonstrate high performance. But researchers are now starting to look more closely at the avoidance side, the motivation to avoid failure or avoid appearing incompetent. This could offer further insights into why some individuals are so hesitant to seek help. Perhaps they are so focused on not looking foolish that they avoid any situation where that might be a possibility, including asking for help, maybe even using covert help-seeking strategies.
That's a subtle but potentially very insightful distinction. Avoidance goals. What else is being explored?
Another direction is getting a deeper understanding of autonomy concerns. While the desire for independence is recognized as a factor in avoiding help, researchers are trying to differentiate between autonomy driven by a genuine desire for mastery, wanting to figure things out independently to truly understand, versus autonomy driven by performance goals, wanting to prove one's self-reliance just to appear capable. Understanding these different motivations behind the desire for independence could further clarify its connection to help-seeking behavior. It's not just about wanting to do it yourself, but why you want to do it yourself.
Yeah, that nuance could be really significant in how we frame our approach to learning and collaboration. Makes sense.
Exactly. And finally, there's an ongoing focus on the social environment. Researchers are increasingly examining teacher-promoted norms around peer interaction and mutual respect, and how these broader classroom-level factors influence help avoidance. Like, how does an instructor's emphasis on collaboration and respectful communication among learners affect their willingness to seek help from each other and from the instructor? These social dynamics are clearly very important.
It all seems to circle back to the importance of creating a supportive and inclusive learning space where individuals feel safe enough to take risks and admit when they need assistance. So, to bring everything together, What would you say are the key takeaways from our deep dive into why we sometimes avoid seeking help?
Well, I think we've seen that it's a really multifaceted issue, isn't it? It's influenced by our personal motivations, things like our perceptions of our own abilities, our academic and social goals, and it's significantly shaped by the environment we're learning in. That includes the rules, the emphasis on learning versus performance, and the overall social atmosphere. Individuals who feel insecure about their abilities or who are very concerned about how they are perceived are just more likely to avoid seeking help. Conversely, learning environments that prioritize understanding and growth and foster positive social connections tend to reduce that reluctance.
Right. And as we discussed at the outset, understanding these dynamics has implications far beyond the traditional classroom. It can inform how we approach creating supportive and effective learning environments in all sorts of contexts. Maybe a professional team working on a challenging project, or really any situation where growth and understanding are the aims.
Absolutely. Which leads to a final thought for you, the listener, to consider. Given that the very desire to appear competent can sometimes prevent us from actually developing competence, how might we consciously rethink our understanding of seeking help? Could we shift our perspective and view asking for assistance not as a sign of weakness, but rather as a demonstration of strength and a crucial step towards growth, both in academic and professional settings? It's definitely something to reflect on as you navigate your own learning and collaborative experiences.
A really powerful point to end on. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today. Until our next exploration.